All right, welcome back. Today, we're digging into the secret life of marriage. What really makes it work. Now, you probably think it's all about the two people in the relationship, right? Well, what if I told you there's a hidden third player that could change absolutely everything? So let's kick things off with a big question. Think about it. Is a marriage really just about two people? Is it ever truly a private affair? The answer, as it turns out, is a pretty resounding no. See, every single relationship exists inside this much, much larger web. Okay, so let's get into what this hidden force actually is. Think of it like a third player in the game, a powerful dimension that's always there, shaping the entire emotional landscape of a relationship. And this force has a name. It's called the third-party bundle. Now, what is that? Well, it's pretty much everything and everyone outside of the couple. We're talking family, friends, jobs, the house you own together, even things like religious institutions. This bundle, it can be an amazing support system, but yeah, it can also be a massive source of conflict. It's constantly pulling the strings on the relationship's stability. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This bundle isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Nope. Its size, its weight, changes everything. And we can basically put these bundles into two main categories: fat bundles and thin bundles. And this is where you can see this incredible tension play out. On one side, you have the fat bundle. This is what you typically see in more traditional cultures. It's super dense with social ties, family, community, the whole shebang. It offers a ton of stability for sure, but the trade-off? It can really restrict your personal freedom. Then you have the thin bundle, which is much more common in modern, individualistic societies. Here, the priority is personal freedom and autonomy, which sounds great, right? But the downside is that it can leave a couple feeling pretty isolated, without that built-in support network. So, okay, we have these bundles, but how do they actually affect the day-to-day journey of a relationship? Well, the thing is, every long-term partnership goes through these totally natural cycles. It's never just a straight line from I do to happily ever after. It's much more like a wave with ups and downs. And these cycles tend to follow four distinct phases. First up, you've got the attraction phase. You know, that honeymoon period where everything is perfect. But then comes the conflict phase. And this is where that third-party bundle really starts to stir the pot, amplifying all the tension. That pressure builds and builds until you hit a climax phase, a real crisis point. From there, you move into the final phase, reconciliation. And that can go one of two ways. It could be a time of renewed love, or it could be a formal split. And get this, the size of your bundle, fat or thin, has a huge impact on how intense each of these stages feels and how long they last. And of course, this whole dynamic plays out totally differently depending on where you are in the world. Culture is the thing that shapes the third-party bundle, and that, in turn, changes the entire experience of a marriage. So let's take a quick trip around the globe to see what this looks like in practice. Let's start in East Asia. In places like China, Japan, and Korea, the third parties that cause the most stress often aren't people at all. They're things like insane housing costs or incredibly demanding corporate jobs. So the whole cycle of conflict and reconciliation, it often hinges less on emotional drama and more on straight-up economic stability. Now, let's hop over to South Asia. Here, arranged marriages are still pretty common, which means you get these super fat bundles. The kinship networks and caste systems create this incredibly dense web of relationships. So when conflicts bubble up, say about in-laws or property, it's not a therapist you call. It's the family elders who step in and mediate the whole thing. And then you have Europe and North America, and it's a completely different story. The focus on individualism means you get much, much thinner bundles. So when those emotional cycles hit, who helps you manage them? It's not the village elders, that's for sure. It's therapists, lawyers, and a whole lot of legal contracts. We can actually map these differences out pretty clearly. Just look at this table. In a fat bundle culture, family influence is sky high, and elders are your mediators. But in a thin bundle culture, that influence is way down, and you bring in the professionals. And check out that line for cycle amplitude. The emotional swings, the highs and lows, are often way more intense in fat bundle systems. Why? Because the stakes are just so much higher. We're talking about things like family honor or major property disputes. Okay, so we've been looking at the big picture, the global view. But let's zoom all the way back in now to something deeply personal. Because this whole journey, this constant cycle of attraction, conflict, and reconciliation, it fundamentally changes you. How many times have you heard someone in a long-term relationship say this? I am not the same person as before. It's such a common feeling, and it perfectly captures this profound transformation that happens. I mean, the emotional strain, the compromises, the growth, it literally reshapes your entire sense of self. And guess what? How you talk about this change, how you narrate it to yourself and others, depends completely on your bundle. In those collectivists, fat bundle cultures, the story is about role evolution. You're no longer just a child. Now you're a spouse, a daughter-in-law, a mother. But in individualist, thin bundle cultures, the story is all about personal growth. It's a journey of self-actualization, of finding your authentic self within the relationship. So all of this leads to a pretty radical, almost sci-fi idea. What if? What if we just stopped fighting these natural cycles? What if, instead, we actually designed our marriages and our social structures around them? Just imagine this for a second, a future where interval separations are a normal part of marriage, where taking a planned break isn't seen as a sign of failure, but as a standard feature, like a scheduled emotional sabbatical that lets you both recalibrate and come back stronger. And in this kind of speculative future, you might even have things called interval separation ceremonies. These would be planned phases apart for emotional recalibration. And you wouldn't have to worry about the messy details because algorithmic contracts could automatically handle things like property and childcare. You might even have an app on your phone that tracks the emotional phases of your relationship and suggests when it's time for a renewal period. And then, after the separation, you'd come back together for a re-proposal ritual to formally renew your union. So, this all leaves us with a huge, fascinating question. Is this the future of love? Would embracing these natural rhythms of conflict and reconciliation actually make our relationships stronger and more resilient? Or would it just mechanize them beyond all recognition, turning the beautiful, messy chaos of love into a predictable, cold science? That's definitely something to chew on.